Alright, let me just go here, buy a few of these bags, pop a few, and be on my way. Oh yeah, by the way, this content is most likely slated for removal in the next few months, along with some other things. For those that don't know, FOMO stands for fear of missing out. Maple has had this issue for years now, where they keep releasing content where people are unsure if it'll ever return. Even with these most recent events, we have things like cosmetics and damage skins and mounts and chairs, which may never come back again. And for a lot of it, it hasn't. If it's tied to a certain event, I can understand that, but a lot of them are very vague and just part of the event. Sure, with cosmetics like damage skins and chairs, that makes them special to that event, but it extends beyond just these. We have full events with best in slot items that may or may not ever return. Things like 1 droid hearts and androids that give 5 attack as a permabuff, and can be star forced up to 15 stars. Or Misty Island's totem from a recent event that can get huge boss flames. Or even things like Sengoku badge and dark totems from Sengoku High, which is an event that hasn't come back for years. To a lesser extent, the Yeti and Pink Bean title you can get from that event does seem to come back annually, which is nice for those that missed it the year prior, but that's still content people can miss out on for a while. We also have non-event content that was around for just years that just suddenly gets removed to most people's shock and surprise. Things like Commerci's transpose system transposing flames. Hell, even all of Commerci is on the chopping block at some point probably. This transposing flames system was like this for years, and people just took it for granted, but one day during the Double Trouble recharge patch, version 240, they listed it as a bug fix and yanked flame transposing for Sweetwater gear from the game entirely. This wasn't spoken about until the patch notes dropped, which is typically the day before, or sometimes even hours before, the actual update. People had no time to prepare for it as they didn't even know it was coming. Even people that skimmed over the patch notes didn't even know it was happening as it was listed under a bug fix. Usually big changes like that aren't listed as bug fixes. In recent years, I guess they are though. This bug has been around for years, like over 5 years, and it suddenly gets changed. Meanwhile, everyone else that already transposed their flames keeps their now impossible to get items. That's FOMO right there. While it's not too egregious nowadays, we have a lot more options for other equipment alternatives for pendants and face and eye accessories. It still neuters a viable option for people wanting something in between those options, as they either have very low drop rates like in the case of Papmark, or they're from much harder bosses like in the case of Twilight Mark. Maybe normal will drops it too, I don't remember. This doesn't mean Sweetwater is entirely useless, as you're still able to transpose the Star Force stats from it reaching 16 stars, but it does worsen it by a fair bit as boss flames on that equipment was fairly big, especially for newer players that are in between the bigger bosses. We have more content that got removed from KMS fairly recently, Korean MapleStory, that will probably be removed from GMS soon too, Global MapleStory. While it's not event content or really best in slot, except for Evo Labs' case for Kaiser and Angelic Buster, it's still more content being pulled from the game that newer players will feel like they missed out on. That fear of missing out does scare away a lot of people that are new to the game and that are returning players. Like, I have friends that just realize they missed out on big content right as they're talking to me, being like, is it now a good time to rejoin Maple? And then they realize they missed out on something that was best in slot, and then they're like, oh, never mind, I don't want to play anymore. I understand that MapleStory is an MMO and counts as a live service game, being entirely online and all. And as with all online games, there will be older content that people will always miss out on, whether it be through events or removed content. In Maple's case, compared to other games, however, this is content that to this day is still considered to be the best you can get, at least in the case of reboot servers. Things like Ghost Chip Exorcist, which is a potable and enhanceable badge. I believe the only time it becomes comparable to any other badge in the game is when you get Genesis badge, all the way at Black Mage. Until then, most players are stuck with the Crystal Ventus badge from Magnus. No other options other than Stellar Detectives, which gives an okay badge, but doesn't come close to Crystal Ventus, or the Monster Park badges, which in total cost 105 billion Or if you get really lucky with the Day of the Week boxes from clearing Monster Park. This isn't impossible, but by golly is it a low chance of happening. Monad is another more recent example. It even had a housing item that's just permanently forever gone. It wasn't ever added to any other sets through the hourlies. You can't get it through deprecated content NPCs or anything. It's just gone. It was a little jellyfish in a container. This is unavailable at all anymore, even though housing just came out in the game late last year, and Monad was removed shortly after. At least we got a notice like a month ahead of time on that one. Not every other content is that lucky, as some other content is days prior or like a week or two prior to the removal. It also gave some cool chairs, and most importantly, a title that was extremely good for alts if you didn't have another comparable title. And it's pretty much on par, if not in some cases better, than other non-event titles you can get in the game from grinding out a set of bosses for 20 weeks. There's even FOMO with classes, ones that get removed entirely like Zen and Jet. With Zen, they kind of just reworked the class into an entirely new one, I believe. But in Jet's case, there's no replacement as of me making this video. There's nothing. We got notified of its removal while the game was down during a maintenance. They disabled creating new ones entirely. There's just nothing left there anymore. And the remaining Jets have a choice to swap to any other Explorer or just become a perma-beginner, which screws up the rankings of beginners so badly. In Jet's case, I understand why they're being removed, especially with the inclusion of 6th Job. They don't want to maintain a class not a lot of people play anymore, in a specific region that has Jet pretty much exclusive, alongside JMS. I wish they did it a little more gracefully though, rather than just shoving it onto us last second and saying Jets are permanently dead come this February. This also puts other non-KMS classes at risk too, like Beast Tamer and the Sengoku classes like Hayato and Kana. I at least have hopes that JMS will maintain these classes and give them a 6th job, but it's not an impossibility that they just get lost in the rivers of time and get deleted, as Kana hasn't had any significant updates ever since they removed Kishin on them back in mid-2022. Beast Tamer, or Chase? I'm slightly more worried about, as she's not available widely in all regions, and she's more so a niche support class, only available like twice a year alongside Zero. I at least hope she sticks around, but I got some doubts. As with upcoming soon-to-be-removed content, if it's still available by the time you watch this video, consider getting some of it out of the way if you don't want to miss out on it. A lot of it's not all that important, but if you really wanted certain things that won't be around forever, sadly the current best solution for MapleStory is to just get it. I personally wouldn't worry over it too much, as you can still get by in Maple just fine even without all the special removed content and the best in slot, theoretically everything, like One-Droid Hearts. But this is an issue with this game that's bugged me for years ever since I returned to play Maple regularly back around 2021, around March. Finding out all of Ghost Ship, Ulu City, and Malaysia for that matter was entirely removed made me sad. I didn't even really care about the Ghost Ship Exorcist badge being removed all that much. I mostly missed the areas. I loved exploring them and grinding in those places. I liked the mobs there, I liked the layouts. It was nice. The Krexel questline for Ulu City was fun. I liked doing that on alts and just doing that boss and getting a decent shoulder early on. Losing the shoulder isn't that big of a deal for me personally, because there's a lot of comparable shoulders nowadays. Even from things like just Magnus, like the Black Shoulder, I'm pretty sure outscales the Krexel shoulder. But missing out on them questlines and missing out on fighting them bosses honestly kinda sucks. I also miss all the old maps from pre-Big Bang Victoria Island. The maps were huge and sprawling, and it felt fun to just explore them. They have brought back these maps in the past for like Maple anniversaries. I believe the 10th or 15th anniversary they brought back Old Victoria Island for us to explore. And some people have them saved on their hyper teleport rocks to this day, but it's incredibly rare nowadays, as the only way you can access those maps is through people that have them saved on their rocks. I hope one day they could bring back some of this content, as I miss my Genesis roof so much. That used to be my hangout spot for years during pre-Big Bang. Let me relive my glory days. Also, bring back the Chief Stan's hat quest. There's so much more FOMO content that I didn't even get to go over because I forgot. But here's a snippet of some stuff that's unavailable to everyone that missed out on it, such as lab server blocks and things from past winter events like the Lucky Winter drop coupons and legacy familiars that get lines that you can't even get on other familiars of the same rarity anymore. And also older enemy familiar card drops, they could have also been epic too. There's also the set of pets that have their own set effect that gives attack, and on their own they each have a little buff that gives like 2 to 5 attack each. I got one of these just from playing MapleStory M because they were giving away a tangerine mount and I wanted that, and instead I got a best in slot pet somehow, damage wise at least. And there's probably still more that I'm forgetting that's not in this section, but I tried my best to cover as much as I could think of. That's all.